Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for Monday, December the 19th, 2022. This evening we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Village Clerk Pramod Shah.
I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A motion to permit Trustee Pure Slovan to participate by Zoom would be in order. Trustee Johnson, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin, Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye. A motion to approve the consent agenda for this evening's meeting is the next subject on the agenda. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Sutker. Is there anything anybody wants removed? Trustee Johnson.
I want to remove 11, F, and G. I have no further comments about these cases. I just want to maintain my vote from the first reading.
Okay, 11, F, and G. Okay. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce the chairman of the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission to swear in a new police officer, Will Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. This is always an honor to come do this. First, good evening. I'm Mayor Van Dusen, trustees, village manager, Lockerbie, Police Chief Baker, and all who are here on this very special evening. I want to especially acknowledge the family and friends of tonight's appointee. This is a proud moment for all of you. I also want to acknowledge, I believe we have some Chicago police officers that have come in. You could raise your hand. Want to always acknowledge our friends from across the way. We do a lot of poaching from Chicago, as we have here tonight. I want to extend my congratulations to you and thank you for supporting your loved one, to these comments to your family for their journey leading to this moment. Tonight we will swear in one new police officer. We must never forget the men and women who serve as our first responders, deserve our admiration. They're often the first on the scene of a tragedy and provide security and comfort to those who are suffering. We invest in our first responders with authority to promote and keep the peace. They have earned our respect and support and gratitude, and it is my great honor to be part of this very special ceremony. You want to join me up here? So if you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Frank Giannakakis,
do solemnly swear that I will hold the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
and the rules and regulations
and the rules and regulations
for the Police Department
of the Police Department
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a police officer to the best of my ability.
of a police officer to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Sign this. I don't have a pen. Here we go. pen back.
Okay, Officer Giannakis, pronounce your name for me. Giannakis. I'll get there.
That's why I didn't try to say it.
Would you introduce your family and friends for us, please?
Sure. Right in front of me, I have my girlfriend Elizabeth. There's my mother Maria, my father Nick, my uncle Jim, cousin Peter, cousin Foster, my entire Chicago police family that I used to work with back there. My friend Pat. There's Damon, Tony, Julian, Crystal, Mike. Some more in the hallway too.
Welcome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
You were the part of an excellent police force. You are now joining one of the best in the country. And I say that without reservation. All of the accrediting agencies have said that, but the residents of the village of Skokie have also said that. We take a survey every 3 years of the entire organization, and it's done independent of the village. And every time we do, the police department and our fire department both come in the 90th percentile of approval by our residents. And that includes people who have gotten speeding tickets, by the way. We are proud of our officers. They're the ones who protect us. They're the ones who see the most difficult times that human beings have. But our officers always act with integrity and with the community in mind. We're proud of them. We're proud to have you. And we look forward to you coming back for other ceremonies and social occasions. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce Chief Baker, who is with us this evening, as well as all of our men and women in blue. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Why don't we take just a short couple-minute break so that we can congratulate our new officer and our members can get back to work. Congratulations. Great day. Next item on the agenda is report of our village manager, John Lockerbie.
Thank you, Mayor Van Duzen, and good evening, trustees. Good evening, everyone. Item A is regarding the proposed addition to the building code, bird strike mitigation building design guidelines. Staff prepared bird strike mitigation design guidelines for the portion of the village's building code that regulates permitted building activity. The guidelines ensure bird-friendly development and incorporate sustainability into new developments. The guidelines would be an appendix to a new section with Village's Chapter 22, which is entitled Buildings and Building Regulations. The guidelines were reviewed by the Plan Commission and the Sustainable Environmental Advisory Commission, commonly referred to as SEAC, with no additional modifications. This recommendation positions Skokie as a leader in mitigating bird strikes in private development. I concur with staff's recommendations and respectfully request Mayor and Board authorize the Corporation Council to draft the necessary ordinance.
A motion the proposed bird strike mitigation building design guidelines would be in order. Trustee Kuhn, seconded by Trustee Sucker. Are there any comments or questions? Trustee Robinson.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to the committee for the hard work with the bird mitigation efforts. This is something that I'm super proud of. It's been a long time coming, and I look forward to next steps.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sucker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. 6 months of effort, and it takes 30 seconds to pass. Aye.
That's a sign of great staff work and commission work. And I do want to thank Johanna Knighton, the Community Development Director, for her leadership on bringing this to conclusion. There has been a number of individuals that have been engaged in it, but Johanna led it across to completion. And so thank you, Johanna. Items B, C, D, E, F, and G were approved as part of tonight's consent agenda. And so the last item remaining is the request for executive session. This is pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C1 of the State of Illinois Open Meetings Act. A closed session is requested and to adjourn therefrom.
A motion for executive session is in order. Trustee Sucker, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Call the roll, please.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, two things. Well, first, I hadn't realized till right before the meeting that our corporation counsel is absent tonight, and I was just wondering if there was a possibility we could table the performance review for him specifically until he is back in person.
That's yes.
Oh, it is? Awesome.
Yeah.
And can I make one final? I had requested in October and then again in November that we have a board discussion under new business about our appointment process for village corporation councils. And it's my understanding that this is going to perhaps be a discussion tonight during the executive session. I have just a minor concern that since the kind of under the Open Meetings Act, we can enter closed session to consider kind of appointments and performance reviews of specific employees. The issue that I had asked for our agenda really is not pertaining to a specific employee. It's about our process as a whole. And I'm just I'm kind of curious if. Okay.
Yeah, it would be. That's all I can say, because I can't. There's no sense in going into executive session if I'm going to divulge. But what I would say is take my word for it.
Okay.
And I'd be glad to explain it to you later. But when Michael is back, I thought we could take everything up.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Excuse me, Mayor. Can you speak into the mic so I could
I'm
hear you
sorry.
better? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, all of the questions regarding the Corporation Counsel's office, I expect we would take up, and I'll explain my reasoning behind that.
Sounds good.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sucker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
That completes my report this evening.
Thank you. Next item is report of our Corporation Counsel. This evening, Assistant Corporation Counsel Barbara Mangler is with us.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Items A, B, C, D, E, and H have been adopted with tonight's consent agenda. Item F and G have been taken off the consent agenda. Item F, this is an ordinance which will amend Chapter 118, Sections 118-175, 118-212, and the Appendix A use table of the Skokie Village Code. These changes will make zoning changes in the OR Office Research District, allowing a residential and residential multifamily uses north of Old Orchard Road, reduce side and rear yard setbacks, and allow a limited service restaurant with a drive-through as a special use. This was up on first reading with the Plan Commission report on December 5th, and it's up tonight for adoption.
A motion on item F on the Corporation Council's report is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Sucker. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a question. The Corporation Council just mentioned the drive-through again, but I thought last time there was a huge discussion about how it wasn't automatically included in this proposal.
Right, so the discussion last time, the recommendation was for as a required use, or that was amended, and what was voted on, it is now a special use. So it has to go through a special use process.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
I abstain.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
Item G is a ordinance for 2022-32P site plan approval, 5400 to 5420 Old Orchard Road. This ordinance will grant site plan approval to construct and establish a mixed-use development in an OR research office research district. The development will include 1,300 square feet of commercial space, which will include 8,000 square feet contained in the main residential building facing Old Orchard Road, and 5,000 square feet in a freestanding building with a drive-through facility. The residential portion of the development will include 294 rental units comprised of 49 three-story townhouse units and 245 units in a four-story building containing a studio, one-bedroom, two-bedroom, and three-bedroom units, of which 13 units will be affordable housing. And then there's various relief from the village code, which is granted as well.
A motion on item G of the Corporation Council's report is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Sutker. Are there any comments or questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. Gail Schechter, 9033B Keating. And I just want to comment on the quote affordable portion. I know that this is not going to be changed tonight, but I'm concerned that a precedent is being set in terms of having somewhere between 4 and 6% of units in new proposals, because there's another one tonight, that are, quote, affordable to people at 100% of area median income. And I just want, again, to reiterate, that's about $95,000 a year or a $2,400 a month rent. And I want to mention that that is actually my income. I earn $95,000 and I really don't need help. People like me do not need help. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit, and the people who really need help are people at 60% of area median or below. In rental, that's the number the state has suggested, 80% for home ownership. So we're talking about, $60,000 a year or less. So I just am really concerned that the village not call affordable housing for people earning, $95,000 a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Abstain.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
And that completes the Corporation Council's report.
Thank you. Matter of new business, report of our Chairman of the Board of Fire and Police Commission, Will Evans.
I brought my bodyguard with me. So we have a proposed change. I believe everybody has seen it, a proposed change, and it really just changes the length of time that candidates can maintain and can stay in the pool. We've increased it to 24 months for our lateral transfer program. You know, and just a little highlight, I listened to we just had the swearing in and listening to the mayor's comments. You know, the Fire and Police Commission does a lot of work, put a lot of time in, and that's what yields us the ability to stay at staff. You know, if you look around in the area, if you look just next door in Evanston, they have 24, I think, openings. And we are at strength, and we try to stay at that. And this is just another example of us staying ahead of the curve. It's very difficult these days to hire police officers across the whole nation. And we try to do as good a job as we can, and that's really the purpose of this minor change in the regulations.
A motion on the chairman's recommendation on police officer lateral entry appointments, an amendment to the rules and regulations would be in order. Trustee Robinson, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Are there any comments or questions?
If I could just make
Sure.
one comment, Mayor.
Of course.
There's a slight correction to the draft that was given to the board.
All right.
So on page 17, where it says 12 months, it should read 24 months.
24.
Right.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor,
Oh,
it's
I'm
me.
sorry.
That's all right.
Trustee Robinson.
I was just just wanted to get some comments from the chief, just kind of your take on the importance of it. And, thank you, Mr. Evans, for your work with this as well. But just kind of highlight the importance of this ask.
Well, from my perspective, the lateral hiring process, which is relatively new for us, some other departments have been engaged in the lateral process longer than we have, is really critical to our ability to maintain strength, as the chairman has mentioned. Given the fact that our initial entry applicant pool seems to be dwindling at great rates, unfortunately, and there's not a whole lot of interest in a lot of people to serve in this capacity compared to what it used to be. And until we figure out why that it is and correct and market ourselves better and engage better and recruit better, the lateral process has allowed us to stay afloat, really. And it's becoming more competitive every cycle because that pool is shrinking. And we need to stay ahead of the curve. And these changes will allow us to take applications at any time and run the hiring process at any time, where before we were restricted to a window in time. So I think it's key for us to be able to continue to be competitive until we bring in larger numbers of initial recruits.
Thank you.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank the commission for us. Next item is report of the Villages Plan Commission, Chairman Paul Luke with Johanna Neiden.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. I bring two cases tonight before you, case 2022-29P and related case 2022-30P. And 29P is a site plan approval. At the August 18th meeting of the Plan Commission, we reviewed a request for a site plan approval and dedication for the property located at 8029 through 8047 Skokie Boulevard. The proposed project is a new mixed-use building that will include upper-story residential over non-residential uses located at the southeast corner of Keeney Street and Skokie Boulevard in a CX Core mixed-use district. The petitioner, 8047 Skokie LLC, on behalf of Gary Levitas, is proposing to construct a 6-story mixed-use commercial and residential building with 56 residential units, 5,837 square feet of commercial and amenity ground floor space usage, and a combination of 78 indoor and outdoor parking spaces. Motor vehicle access to the site will use two major access points, one curb cut on Keeney and one curb cut off the alley, in addition to service parking spaces directly off the alley. Pedestrian access will be via public sidewalks. A 2-foot dedication is requested for widening the alley for conversion to a commercial mixed-use alley. Mr. Levitas recalled the same request was made for his previous building, which is next door. Per OSHA requirements, utilities will be relocated to the east side of the alley. Burying them underground is cost prohibitive. There is no access from Skokie Boulevard as a driveway. The driveway for the bank will be removed. It is known that there is no parking on Skokie Boulevard, therefore, parking access will be from the alley and one curb cut off of Keeney. The engineering division will not support zone parking for this development, although it's located in a on-street zone parking area. There's a lot for vehicular traffic. There's a lot of vehicular traffic from the many four flats already in the area to the east of the project, and the streets cannot handle any more traffic. Each residential unit includes a single indoor parking space, which is entered from Keeney Street. The development is allowing for 14 outside guest parking spaces with access from the alley. Parking for additional cars will need to come from separate off-site arrangements or in public lots in the neighborhood. The Plan Commission recommended approval of relief from the zoning ordinance on a site plan approval request to allow less than 50% of the building facade to abut the public sidewalk, restricted uses, in addition to permitted and special uses, for a minimum of 60% of the first floor linear square footage. A drive aisle will be less than 24 feet wide when serving 20 or more parking spaces. Waive the 5-foot clear walkway requirement for the alley parking spaces. Waive the requirement of one internal parking lot tree for every 15 parking spaces, and allow one or more site distant triangles to be less than 15 feet. As part of the village's environmental review, staff noted complete street components and enforcement of stormwater management regulations, the plumbing code, the energy conservation code, tree protection and replacement, and the installation of landscaping plants. The applicant, subsequent to the meeting, is proposing that 3 units within the project be designated for rent affordable at 100% of area median income, or AMI, for a period of 20 years. The composition of the units would reflect the units of the apartment complex. One bedroom with 1 bath, one bedroom, a den, and 1 bath, and 1 2-bedroom with 2 baths. Several commissioners further discussed adequate parking, since there would be no extra parking in the neighborhood streets. It was proposed that the tenants should be encouraged to use public transportation or could lease parking spaces at the Kiss and Ride lot across the street, as ridership is down on the train and is not expected to return to pre-COVID levels for a long time. Staff stated that the village received a grant to build this train station, but did not provide for parking. Mr. Levitas stated that he has changed his marketing strategy and will make it known to potential tenants that each rental unit includes only one parking space. There was a parking issue during the leasing of 8025 because he thought his tenants could secure zone parking permits. A temporary arrangement was made with Crafty Beaver and Walgreens for overflow parking for the tenants of 8025, which is set to expire this year. Mr. Levitas inquired of staff if the village could provide additional parking for the area since a parking permit for his tenants would not be obtainable. I offered that the village is in the process of building a public garage downtown. I also inquired if they were considering installing electric charging stations. Staff offered that these types of controls need to be put in place at the time of the building of the garage. That is the village's garage. A commissioner asked about bird strike policy. John Hanna, project architect, stated they will meet village ordinances. They are looking at many options and nothing has been finalized. They are considering bird-friendly and tinted glass and putting in mullions, but they do not want to create a honeycomb effect and have pigeons roosting on the sills. The village has no codes in place yet, but encouraging developers to put in place measures to minimize bird strikes. No interested party spoke at the meeting. The Appearance Commission approved the facade at the September 14th meeting. Therefore, the Plan Commission, on a vote of 6 ayes and no nays and 3 members absent, approved the request and asked that the village also follow with the approval.
Okay. There are 2 cases before us.
Yes, the next case is just a request for a 1-lot subdivision. That's case 2022-30P.
So the first is the primary case, Plan Commission Case 2022-29P, site plan approval. A motion is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Sutker. Are there any comments or questions?
Okay.
1 second. Yes. Trustee Robinson.
Just had a few things that I wanted to kind of read, if I may.
Of course.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me? In my late night radio host voice. So I didn't want to go into the new year without expressing my shared concern about affordable housing in Skokie. I also understand and incredibly grateful for some of the developers who are seeing us and prioritizing our affordable housing, however that looks currently. I appreciate the village staff's efforts and commend them on their work and their effort for ensuring that all expectations are met with all new development coming in Skokie. And I also appreciate the village's affordable housing past practices as a priority. But I cannot accept the fact that there is no current ordinance that governs affordable housing in Skokie. So I think it's time to formally explore it, interrogate it, identify who we are as a community, and understand the intent and impact on affordable housing in Skokie. So I don't know if it was proper to put a motion on the floor.
Sure.
So I'd like to put a motion on the floor, and this is working with the Plan Commission to hold a public hearing so that we can make recommendations for a formalized policy regarding affordable housing in the village. And I do want to put a time frame on it, to be presented to the village board at the end of the first quarter of the new calendar year.
Would it be permissible for the Plan Commission, if they deem necessary, to hold more than one hearing? Would
Yeah,
that-
absolutely.
And the idea would be that they would explore.
They would explore and hold a
potential
community-
ordinance regarding affordable housing
Absolutely.
and report their findings back to the village board.
Yes.
Is there a second? Trustee Sutker.
I agree with Trustee Robinson. I'd like to look at this in an in-depth way. And I have talked to the village manager about some ideas that I have too, so I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
And I think, Trustee Kuhn.
I appreciate the motion. I appreciate the motion, Trustee Robinson. I just want to clarify also with the village manager in terms of this time stipulation, is that a realistic timeline for the planning commission to come back with a report by the end of the first quarter of the calendar year?
So let me talk through the process a little bit. I think there'll need to be a staff report to the Plan Commission in order to set up the said public hearing. And so we'll need some time to do that. And then we post Plan Commission cases 30 days in advance, if my memory serves me correctly. And so then if the Plan Commission determines that they would need more than one hearing, and then the recommendations come into the village board, I think the end of the first quarter is reasonable. I think that's a timeline that would work out.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Call the roll on the motion to direct the Plan Commission to explore an affordable housing ordinance. Is that correct?
Afford and recommend.
Recommend.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin.
Aye.
Trustee Klein. Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Now, somebody's going to have to correct my memory. We do have a motion on the site plan approval, correct? Okay.
Yes.
I seconded it.
Yes, Ralph made the motion. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Part of the site plan involves removing some trees, and I definitely applaud the efforts to protect the trees with the fencing that stipulates, but if the developer is going to be removing trees, I mean, this is a 6-story building, so could we insist that they put a green roof to try to mitigate some of the heat island effect? And also just give extra green space to the people who are living in this building?
I would remind the board that we do have a tree preservation ordinance that is in place, and so since the architect started designing the development, they were aware of the regulations of trees. And so there is a replacement process for trees when they're taken out. And then as far as sustainability measures, I don't know if there's additional comments that the Plan Commission or the developer would like to make. But just as a reminder, we do have in place the tree preservation ordinance.
Right, but they just asked permission to have a, variance to the ordinance to remove one of the trees anyway, right? So as like stipulation to being able to remove the tree, would you be allowed to say you have to have a green roof?
So there's no question that there's an interest in sustainability initiatives. The developer shares that value with the village. We've had numerous conversations and discussions with Mr. Levitas and his team. This is his second development in the community and really has helped the village of Skokie achieve the vision of the TOD corridor on Skokie Boulevard. The land that was where his first development occurred was actually owned within his family, within the extended family. And so the village had to go into a demonstration project in order to enable that development to occur. Otherwise, we could not have achieved the vision of transit-oriented development on that corridor across the street from a train station that was just needing this type of housing. And so thanks to Gary Levitas and his team, the village was able to achieve our long-term vision. And so as we have moved in, as he has had success, and that project has been extremely successful, he and I worked years ago to try to acquire the property that he is proposing tonight to have the second development on. But the user and the owner at the time were not interested. But as we sit here tonight, the opportunity has presented itself to have a second development that really fits the village's vision. And so we actually have been talking about this specific development that's before the board for more than 2 years. And so for us tonight to require a green roof goes against our philosophy and the way that we approach development. We strive to have expectations up front so that developers, when they're negotiating the price of their land, to be able to know what is expected and required of them. And so as we are sitting here tonight, I would not feel comfortable making that expectation and requirement on this development, although we all share the value and the desired outcome that you're seeking. To add a green roof to a building changes the load requirements on a building. It changes the foundation. The width of foundations in urban redevelopment is a significant issue because there's underground utilities, there's public property versus private property, and so when we talk about expanding the width of foundations, it becomes very complicated. And to do that at this point is really not the way that we try to approach development.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments? If
Here.
not, oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Johnson.
First of all, I just want to say I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for the motion that was made earlier about these special or public hearings for the Plan Commission. I think that's an excellent idea. I want to kind of echo one of the concerns that was raised earlier about how we're defining affordable housing as 100% AMI. Something that was really brought to my attention this week is that not only is 100% AMI area median income pretty high, it may be even higher than Skokie's median income, which in itself is higher than the median income for this neighborhood, which is kind of specifically one of the most affordable neighborhoods in really all of Skokie. And so I think just some site-specific considerations for this project. We talk about transit-oriented development and the village's vision for this across from the train station. There is really no greater need for transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented development is most needed for low and moderate income folks. And this is also immediately bordering truly one of the most affordable neighborhoods in all of Skokie and really all of the North Shore, immediately to the east, where rents are often significantly lower than even the most affordable rents in a site like this. So for me, this site is kind of a little different than some of the other projects that we've seen recently, like the Old Orchard Road project that was given final approval this evening that borders, very nice single-family homes in Glenview, or the Toohey and Linder project that borders kind of a commercial and industrial area. So I would just like to ask the board to kind of keep those kind of site-specific considerations in mind.
And I think that's the kind of idea that we expect the Plan Commission to take a look at. There's no shortage of ideas on affordable housing and how to make it happen. It's expensive, and it is not easy to achieve. We, as a village, we've always had our philosophy that we wanted a mixed variety of housing in the village, and we have long ago embraced the idea of transit-oriented development. I think we've done a fairly good job up north that corridor around the station up north, and then now I think this project brings to fruition that, but your comment is well taken. And hopefully the chairman of the Plan Commission is here and heard it. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Nay.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. The second is the Plan Commission Case 2022-30P, subdivision and dedication 8029 to 8047, Skokie Boulevard. A motion is in order. Trustee Sutker, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Are there any comments or questions on the subdivision? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
Okay. Mayor, I believe I speak for all my fellow commissioners when I say that we welcome the task that you've set before us as far as looking at affordable housing. And we will do the best we can to bring you the best report that we can develop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We know you will. Next item is public hearing number 1, 2022-2023 CDBG. Johanna Knighton.
Yeah. Oops. Where's that? Where'd the Zoom go? Oh, there it is. How about here?
Okay, good evening. Johanna Neiden, Community Development Director. Here tonight to kick off the CDBG program year for 2023. I'm joined by my colleagues, Paul Reese, our Planning Manager, and Justin Malone, our Neighborhood Services Coordinator. Also 2022 hires from the Village of Skokie, so new faces. So overview of timeline for this process. This is the kickoff tonight. We'll talk a little bit about where we've been with funding this past year, and then where we're going to go. January 17th will be the proposal presentations from applicants for this. The application is out on the street. People are able to ask us questions. We're already getting a lot of interest and feedback for the funding opportunities for community development block grants. Then we'll meet again on February 21st, where we'll discuss how and to what amount we want to fund different areas of activities. And then March 20th would be the presentation of the Project Year 2023 Action Plan for adoption. Skokie's, so this is probably familiar to many of you. The vision statement for Skokie CDBG program will provide a better quality of life for low and moderate income residents through bricks and mortar projects and service activities. Capital goals, there's 3 goals. Capital improvements, ensure housing is affordable, accessible, and sustainable. Improve infrastructure, improve facilities. Under services, provide financial assistance for programs and services. And then under planning and administration, conduct planning and administration activities, which is largely the work that staff does to maintain this program. Under objectives, under capital improvement, ensure housing is affordable, accessible, and sustainable. Focuses on owner-occupied homes, affordable rental apartments, elderly and frail elderly, special needs, and energy efficiency. Under improve infrastructure, street resurfacing projects in low moderate income neighborhoods, sidewalk replacement projects for owner-occupied low moderate income households, And then under improved facilities, construction and rehabilitation projects, so organizations can provide improved, expanded, or more affordable services and other funding services. So this is all in the action plan, I'm sorry, the consolidated plan. So I have, Justin, do you want to help pass? Sorry, give me a minute. So this is kind of hard to read, so we have some paper copies, if that's helpful. But this is a breakdown of how the village has spent its CDBG capital improvements dollars for and subrecipients. The village of Skokie's portion, the total is a little bit south of $500,000, but the village of Skokie has spent about $185,000 on street resurfacing. Our home improvement program, $80,000, almost $81,000. The neighborhood enhancement program, which is a new program that helps provide some additional improvements to multifamily housing, owner-occupied multifamily housing, which we're in progress on, and then several other partners throughout the village who have been able to do smaller projects through CDBG. Okay, objectives under services, provide financial assistance for programs and services, counseling, supportive and referral activities, children and youth, senior age in place activities, special needs, dental and other healthcare. So these are all things that were identified in the consolidated plan. And then again, objectives under services, financial, career, and employment counseling, immigrant resettlement, interpretation, multilingual staff, and housing related services addressing issues such as homelessness prevention, transitional housing and supportive housing, permanent housing and independent living. And then again, a breakdown of the CDBG dollars for social services recipients. A large portion funds the village's social worker for this past year, as well as several other partners throughout the village, for a total of about $85,000. And then in terms of our non-village, this is a further breakdown of all of our money, taking out the village's portion to illustrate how our money goes, the various pieces of the pie go to different partners within the village. Oops, that's not where I want to go. So a few, as we get ready to go forward with our 2023 action plan, a few bits of feedback we've gotten from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, looking at increasing the cap or moving the cap minimum grant allocation to $5,000 this coming year. What we've learned from applicants and from staff, there's a lot of work that goes into monitoring and completing the work to do fund drawdowns, monitor to make sure the work was done in accordance with HUD guidelines. So the recommendation from HUD and then review with staff was to increase it so we are able to give a larger amount of money to a smaller group of people, but really focusing in on those con plan goals in order to make sure that we're doing the best possible work within the village of Skokie. We have a couple of ideas that we've streamlined and enhanced the village process, mostly in terms of some paperwork and some materials that we would be issuing out to applicants. And then both of these pieces are trying to use staff time better, use the applicant's time better, which in this economic climate, making sure that not-for-profits are using their resources to the best of their ability and we're not creating an extra burden on them in terms of process is really important in reviewing this work for 2023. And then next steps, we anticipate our due date is December 23rd for applicants. So we'll review them at that point, and the applicants will come to a meeting on January 17th and present their proposals, and then we'll consider how these will be funded on February 21st, and then we'll present the program year 2023 action plan at the March 20th village board meeting, when hopefully there's no snowstorms on the horizon. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, January 17th will probably be the coldest day of the year. It almost always is. Of course.
For the immigrant recipient part, is that new for 2023, or have we looked at that before?
We've had that before.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn for executive session, public comment.
Hi, I'm Judy Mendel. You guys know me already. Let me just thank the board for, and Trustee Robinson for making his proposal to have a town hall to address affordable housing. It's really important. I just wanted, you got my public comments earlier, but I just wanted to share a story publicly about why we need some more affordable housing. I started tutoring the children of a Syrian Kurdish refugee family in 2016. This family of 5, headed by a single mother, first lived in a small, despicable 2-bedroom apartment with an awful landlord, and that is in the neighborhood just north of the Target on Dempster. They were desperate for better housing and a better landlord and moved to a small 2-bedroom garden apartment across from the Weber Center, which the landlord promised didn't flood. Of course it did. They somehow found another 2-bedroom townhouse, also north of the Target, where they have lived for 4 years. The landlord told them they have to move next month as he wanted to sell the townhouse. He was hoping they would buy it, but there's no way they can buy it. Layla, the mother, told me they were currently paying a good rent of $1,400. She knew it was sort of below what he could ask, and they wouldn't be able to find anything different. Layla and her children are now proud citizens of the United States who work very hard. She cleans for Skokie Hospital and hopes to become a medical assistant once her English gets better. Her daughter is taking on a lot of debt at UIC and hopes to become an optometrist. The oldest son is at Oakton Community College and wants to be a realtor. I don't know how much Layla makes, but let's say she gets $15 an hour. That's $2,400 a month before tax. And you can do the math. Their current rent of $1,400 is way more than a third of their income. They do not get Section 8. They want to stay in District 219 for the 2 younger boys. Skokie welcomes refugees, then there is no housing for them. And I just want to finish with a quote that this is from Mahatma Gandhi, the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Thank you.
Judy, just one point. In your comment, you said that I said that I was proud that the village was at the 10% threshold. We double that. We are almost at 20%. Now, 10% is the state mandated threshold. So the village is at 19.5%.
Okay, I'm
That's
sorry.
all.
I didn't do my fact checking.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
I just, this Gail Schechter again, thank you, Trustee Robinson, for the motion and all of you for your unanimous passage of this, this great initiative in the new year to take a look at affordable housing and that the Plan Commission will work on and have at least one public hearing. I just wanted to thank you for that. And I just wanted to add, a number of us who live here in Skokie, myself and others, would be glad to help in any way. I would also hope that as you're looking at the issue, it's not just new construction, but it's preservation. It's not just the supply of housing, but it's also the demand side. So the supply side is the housing that's affordable at rents, for example, that the family that Judy was talking about could afford. The demand side is ways to boost income so people can afford the housing that exists, that's at fair market rent. So that's, for example, what a housing choice voucher is. So the housing, the organization I work at in the city of Chicago uses the Chicago Low Income Housing Trust Fund, which actually gives subsidies to to landlords to make a portion of their units affordable. So those are called, quote, project-based. So that's just an idea. So what I would suggest is as the Plan Commission goes about starting to look at this, to look at kind of a broader framework of housing affordability. And that's it. I would be happy to help in any way. Thank you.
Yeah, Gail, one of the points that you make, I think is often overlooked. It isn't the number of units, it's the quality of the units. And one of the things that John and I and Michael have been talking about is trying to figure out how do we incentivize the owners of units that are desperately in need of rehabbing without them becoming unaffordable. And it's a very tricky proposition. And it's one of the things that we've just thrown in the laps of the Plan Commission. And the reason I asked Trustee Robinson if more than one meeting would be permitted under his motion is because I anticipate that this is going to be a many-pronged project, and it's not just a simple, we're going to strong-arm developers henceforth. It's a much more complicated thing, and quite frankly, it involves property taxes, it includes new construction, but also the old construction that is desperately in need of rehabbing. And I think one of the points Trustee Johnson made earlier about that section of the village is actually where we do. And I think it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I explored the idea of a housing TIF. What I discovered is it hasn't been done anywhere else in the state of Illinois, but I think that is the kind of thing that we can begin to take a look at. But also, we will need the participation in the future of the not-for-profit organizations. I'm going to go out on a limb here, but my conclusion, very tentative, has been that the only way you can get a large infusion of affordable housing is through the not-for-profit network. It's very difficult to get for-profit developers to do it. The project, I learned quite a bit with the project on Floral Avenue. It required, we had to go back to the Illinois Housing Development Authority, I think it was 3 times. Finally, we were successful. But that project is going to, in the end, cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $12 to $13 million. And we had to persuade the Illinois Development Housing Authority to put forth the bonds that would be able to do that. And you're in the not-for-profit world. I'm fairly familiar with that world myself. I think that is where the future lies. But
yeah, just to add, actually what's happening, a lot of affordable housing is actually built in partnership through the low-income housing tax credit. So in that sense, that would be something I'm sure the Plan Commission would look at. And just by the way, in terms of a housing TIF, earlier this year, the city of Evanston just passed a housing TIF in the 5th Ward. We'll see how that works out.
I saw that. I'm keeping my eye on it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy White. I live at 5001 Gulf Road. That's immediately southwest of Nordstrom and Westfield Old Orchard, which is honestly the best of all possible worlds for someone who is on a limited income. I can easily walk to everything except a hardware store, and literally 75 feet from my door is transportation that I can use to go anywhere in the continental states. That's pretty phenomenal. What I want to do, because Gail is going to be the person who knows all the expert stuff, what I want to do is to make sure that y'all understand that the people who need affordable housing are not just those people. This is the face of affordable housing. I'm not an immigrant. I'm not even a second-generation American. I'm not African American, indigenous, or a person of color. I attended private schools from K through 11, and it was my choice to switch to public school my senior year. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke. I do have some disabilities, hearing loss being one of them, but those disabilities have not kept me from earning 2 master's degrees or being accepted for doctoral work at Northwestern. They haven't kept me from running a new music concert series or an international music society, for which I was also editor and publisher of their magazine. They didn't keep me from teaching music at the college level. They didn't keep me from teaching English language learners in public schools like Judy for long enough to earn one of Illinois' infamous pensions. They didn't even keep me from being nominated as Teacher of the Year, but consistently working in the nonprofit sector does mean that my only reliable source of income as a retiree is my Illinois pension at $24,000 a year. That's what I earned as a nonprofit worker in 1990. I want to know how $95,000 a year rent, what is it, a castle, is supposed to be affordable for someone like me. That's nearly 400% of my reliable income, assuming the state doesn't default on us retirees. We need to rethink these parameters, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
I have a question. Just point of clarification. Excuse me. Kathy, just point of clarification. In the beginning, you talked about, it's me talking. Here I am.
Hi.
In the beginning, you talked about you're not one of those people. Just curious to know, who are you talking about? And so I can better understand your point.
I'm just making sure that we understand that the folks who need affordable housing are sometimes folks who we're teaching our children, folks who are next door to us, folks who are living across the street. They're not strangers, and they're not people who did something wrong. Often they're people who did something very right.
Thank you.
I had a suggestion as a follow-up to part of the discussion that happened earlier, but I know there was a request for an executive session, so I'm not sure if it would count against the time for my public comments to
You
respond.
have 3 minutes.
Okay. Is it okay if I share my screen so that trustee at home can? Nope. Why is this not working? presentation mic? Okay. Tonight I'd like to talk about idling in a more quantitative way, and idling versus moving vehicles and why idling is a bigger problem for the people in the vicinity. Per gallon of gasoline, an idling vehicle can produce up to twice as many toxic emissions as a vehicle in motion. And the emissions from idling vehicles, because if you think about, for example, a drive-through or a line of cars waiting to pick up their kids, those cars are just sitting there and there's no motion to those gases whatsoever. Whereas if you think about a busy street such as Skokie Boulevard or Dempster, it's not a constant line of cars. You see, there are spaces in between the cars and there are breaks between when the cars are there, and the cars themselves give some velocity to those gases and they dissipate a lot faster. Drive-through workers and pedestrians who are walking nearby are exposed to these toxins. According to a Staffordshire webpage from the UK, vehicle emissions are by far the biggest contributor to air pollution around schools and are a significant health hazard. Basically, people are breathing in this stuff, and it's very bad for their health. But it's not just bad for breathing. The toxins in exhaust, and I've mentioned this before, the toxins in the exhaust settle on the dirt, and when you do construction, you bring that stuff back up into the air. Or if you have kids playing on the playgrounds where this stuff is settling, or in their backyards where this stuff is settling, they're touching things, they're putting things in their mouths, and they're getting it into their bodies. It's also settling into the water, it's hurting the wildlife, it's going to get into us if we choose to swim in that water. We have to pull it out of the water if we're going to drink from it. So it's not just about breathing. Between restarting a car and idling, Argonne did some pretty interesting measurements, and what they found is that it's really bad in terms of emissions for a cold start. For a restart, so the engine hasn't really cooled off, it's still it's not nearly as bad. And then if you were to idle a car for, say, 10 minutes, it's much worse than restarting the car. So you see, if you restart the car versus idle for only 30 seconds, sure, you're doing better by idling. But when you're idling a car, it's not for 30 seconds. This is not what we're not talking about at a red light. We're talking about for picking somebody up, for being in a drive-through. Especially, I'm very anti-drive-through. And that's the whole point of this. So there's one myth that it's harder on the car to turn it off and on again. If the car is stopped for at least 60 seconds, that's absolutely not true in terms of the wear and tear on the car versus the amount of gasoline that you burned for absolutely no reason. The people inside the car aren't affected if you have the windows up. Also not true, because the car, first of all, is not airtight. And second of all, it's pulling in. If you have the heater or the AC on, it's pulling in air from the outside, so you are exposed to those toxins also. Benefits to not using a drive-through: you save money because idling wastes a lot of money. And a car that gets about 35 mpg burns a sixth as much gas per second idling as it does driving at 55 miles an hour. And I can go through this calculation if you'd like. It protects your health and the health of the drive-through workers and anybody who's walking past, for you to just go park your car, turn it off, and get out and walk into the store to pick up your stuff. You can make sure they don't put plastic utensils in the bag or your ice cream or whatever, because we have experience with people in drive-thrus not following those directions. You get to stretch your legs and get another hour credit on your watch and get some more steps in. And now using a drive-through to avoid contact with people is completely unnecessary now that we have decent masks. Here is a list of municipalities, according to the EPA, that have anti-idling policies. And if you'll notice, Cook County is actually one of those municipalities. Illinois, here's a list of states that themselves at the state level have anti-idling policies. And we here in Skokie are not enforcing either Illinois' or Cook County's anti-idling policies. And I'm not talking about drive-thrus either. I'm talking about all the times when I see somebody going into Starbucks, they get out of their car, it's completely empty and it's idling, and they're in there for like 5-10 minutes. Fines aren't necessarily the answer. As somebody I was recently listening to on NPR pointed out, if you can pay the fine, then it's a question of whether it's more convenient for you to take the risk of having to pay $100 versus not breaking the rule. So they're more about convenience. And actually, the DOJ did a study that said people who paid fines were more likely to commit future offenses than people who didn't pay fines. And the more severe the fine was, the more likely they were to commit the same offense again. Community service seems like the option here, right? Like, this is one of the things that if you want action items, you can say, we're going to enforce community service for when people violate the idling policies or violate the water use policies because people are still watering their lawns in the middle of the day. You can stop approving any drive-throughs because we absolutely do not need drive-throughs. And then in case you want references, because you saw some footnotes, that's what these are. And some of these are just interesting future readings, and some of them are referred to in the slide. So thank you very much, and Chag Hanukkah Sameach for those of you who are celebrating, and Merry Christmas to those of you going to celebrate next weekend. Bye.
Thank you. A couple things I would like to note before we adjourn for an executive session. On my way over, I understand that there was some very unwelcome news Thursday afternoon into Friday. We're going to have a dip in temperature and anywhere upwards of 6 inches to a foot of snow. So please, if anybody is listening or watching, observe the opposite side parking. We do enforce it. We don't give warning tickets. So please, help our public works guys get the work done, especially the evening work, which can be dangerous. Also, I couldn't let the meeting go without acknowledging the passing of a very significant person in the history of the village, and yet I think many of us do not know. Dorothy Litwin. Some of you who have been around a while would have known Dorothy. She was 97 when she passed away just this last week. She was a visionary. She was the one responsible for bringing the John David Mooney sculpture to the village of Skokie. Some of you may know of Mooney, a very famous reputation nationally and worldwide for his modern sculptures. It's right outside. I think, Nick, you were the one who figured out how we could actually get it lit. John's predecessor tried chasing Mooney down in France, but Mooney escaped him. So Nick came to the rescue and figured out how to make the damn thing work. But it is a wonderful sculpture in the evening. She also discovered and recommended that the village hire a particular comedian for our centennial celebration. Some of you may have heard of him. It was Jerry Seinfeld, who nobody had heard of except Dorothy Litwin. And we used to say that it was Skokie that discovered Jerry Seinfeld. He did perform, and it was very memorable, I must say. But I think more than anything else, she was the person who was responsible, in addition to my predecessor, Mayor Gorell, for the founding and the creation of the Performing Arts Center that we have up on Skokie Boulevard. She founded a group called Center East. Some of you may remember it. And it was a pretty daring thing. She actually thought it was possible to get national entertainment coming to the village of Skokie, and she rented the auditorium at Oakton Community College, its previous iteration, not the modern campus. And believe it or not, she would get 1,000, 1,500. She filled the auditorium, and she just started cold-calling agents of all of these different national performers. And as soon as the state of Illinois created a matching program to encourage municipalities and counties to create performing arts centers, sure enough, she was on the doorstep. And we were only one of 5 municipalities in the history of the state of Illinois to get the grant. It was a $10.2 million grant from the state of Illinois. The village bonded, I believe it was $5 million to match that grant. Those bonds, by the way, are now paid off, and we own and we operate the Performing Arts Center. And it's been an integral way of bringing patronage into the village. I was told a few years ago by the proprietor of the Panera up north. I had gone in to pick up something, and he took me aside and said, "How's the Performing Arts Center going?" I said, "It's really going great." And he said, "Well, you know, we're the busiest Panera in the state of Illinois, and it's only because of the Performing Arts Center." So, and at one point, we did a study of the economy up on Skokie Boulevard and learned from talking to the proprietors up there that the Performing Arts Center had a ratio of 3 to 1. For every dollar spent at the Performing Arts Center, $3 was spent on an adjacent use, like a restaurant or a bar somewhere like that. So we miss Dorothy. She was a great lady. And with that, I would like to join Lauren in wishing everybody happy holidays, drive safely, and be careful Thursday night if you're out. See everybody in the new year. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn for executive session.